Good morning, everyone. Let me get things set up here. All right, can you all see that? All right.
Looks great. Looks great.
Cool. So thanks for the intro, Jason. I'm excited to be here in Madison. Amazingly, it's been over 4 months now. I started in early May, right at the height of the lockdown. So it's been a very interesting journey for me here at Madison, but overall, I think we're making some good progress, and I hope to talk to you all about it a bit. I came from Indianapolis, where I was the vice president for planning and capital projects there at the transit agency Indigo. And my background was heavily in the development and planning of new infrastructure, new projects there at Indigo, including primarily our bus rapid transit, the red line that opened a little over a year ago, September 1st last year. It was the first all-electric bus rapid transit line in the country. And then we've also, as part of my role there, we were actually pursuing 2 additional bus rapid transit lines, the second of which just got funded this past summer. And then the third one would follow a year or 2 later. We also implemented a new fare collection system. We did a complete route network redesign study that was, again, supposed to be implemented this past summer, and then COVID hit and kind of threw a wrench into that. As well as built one of the largest electric bus fleets in the country. So when I left, we had 56 electric buses, which was almost a third of our entire fleet was electrified. So I bring all of that background here to Metro, where I guess happily a lot of the same initiatives are underway. And so I'll talk a little bit about those here in a minute. On a personal level, we bought a house. We moved in about a month ago. I've got my wife and 2 young boys, and we're really excited to be here in Madison, and a great place to live. And I really look forward to there actually being festivals and things in the summer to attend. Unfortunately, this year it's a little bit of a curveball. But so I want to talk a little bit about the current operations at Metro. As you all know, back in March, we kind of retreated to a mostly weekend level of service when the lockdown first started to happen. And we've made some tweaks and upgrades since then going forward, kind of culminating in this past couple of weeks where on August 23rd, we restored most of the service, but not all, which I'll talk about here in a minute. And then also started fare collection again on September 1st. We are still doing a couple of things that are unique that didn't happen before. One is we're not doing road reliefs, which basically mean our drivers swapping out on the street. So every driver gets their own fresh bus when they come out. And along with that, we've installed some shields, plexiglass shields to separate the driver from the aisleway of the bus. And so to provide them some additional protection with everybody walking by the fare box in the front. We are still doing enhanced cleaning and fogging and sanitizing of the bus. We currently have a 20 passenger limit on the bus. So if we do hit that limit, we dispatch what we call a road bus to kind of help pick those people up. And that is, again, up until yesterday when UW, I think, retreated a little bit, we were starting to get to some of those 20 people on a bus numbers. But now I expect that'll subside a little bit. Our drivers are asked to wear masks. Passengers, per the countywide order, there is a mask mandate. I was out on the bus last Friday, riding around for 4 hours or so, just talking to our drivers and talking to passengers. And I encountered probably, 60 to 75 people. Every single one of them was wearing a mask, which was really refreshing and frankly kind of surprising. So I was really happy to see that. And then, so right now we're at what I keep calling about 85% of what our pre-COVID service levels were. There's a couple reasons for that. One, obviously, our demand is still lower, and so there's not as much demand for the service. The budget is certainly an impact. We will see tax revenue impacts of this, and are already starting to see that impact. And so I did not want to restore service that we couldn't guarantee we could keep on the street for the long term. Basically, if our financial picture is struggling, I don't want to restore 100% of service now and then have to cut 15% of service next year. I would rather kind of keep us at a level that we can sustain. And that includes budget and staffing. So for a long time, even before COVID, we were running at a pretty big deficit in terms of the number of people we had on staff. It was a really tight job market, and we couldn't hire enough people to be driving the buses. And so we were stuck in situations where we were stretching people very thin with overtime. And as well as we even had our supervisors driving buses at different times just because we didn't have anybody to get on the bus. And so we want to make sure we can build back sustainably to where we can, again, make sure that the service we can provide well. So just a little frame of reference on what COVID did. Our ridership went down to about 10% of what it was before. That has started to claw back. I don't have the exact number recently, but I do expect September will be something closer to normal. It certainly will probably be less than half of normal, but at least it won't be 10% of normal. And we've added a lot of costs to sanitize the buses, including deploying about 30 additional staff into just bus cleaning. And so we've been providing less service, but those people have been redeployed to cleaning buses, and so our costs really haven't gone down at all. Going forward, we're kind of in a holding pattern now with some of our service restoration, but because everything happened so quickly with the way that UW was going to come back, we didn't have time to do a public hearing before we made some of these changes. And so we're going to, on October 14th at our Transportation Commission meeting, we are doing a public hearing that will allow people to come in and talk about the changes and how they impacted them and any additional changes they do want to see. And that will allow us to make some tweaks, but we don't anticipate going back to 100% service anytime soon. So we'll largely hold at about this level of service. Going into our route network study, which is actually just approved by council, and will be, I think, starting the public process primarily in early 2021. This will look comprehensively at our entire system, and frankly, kind of with a completely fresh set of eyes, and how do we design a system from scratch that works best for the people of Madison. As you know, Madison has been growing for a pretty significant clip for a while. Our bus service, both in quantity of service and just the design of the service, hasn't necessarily kept up with that change. And so looking at everything with fresh eyes, I think will help us really design a system for what we want it to be and meet the needs of the city. Bus rapid transit line, the East-West BRT, that work is still continuing. I feel strongly that this is, it may be even more important now with the current budget situation. Bus rapid transit really allows us to carry more people, in many cases at less cost. The buses going faster and the buses being larger allow us to carry more people more quickly with fewer buses on the street. And so I think this is really important, especially because of the recession and the financial impacts, not just, I think there have been some people calling for it to be kind of scrapped because we can't afford it, but I would argue that we can't not do it. We can't afford not to. And so the grant application for that project went in just a couple weeks ago. And then we would hope to, again, the overall schedule for that project would be to begin construction early 2023 and be open for service in the summer of 2024. One change that we did make in our application is some enhancements to the service patterns. So as previously envisioned, it was one route that ran every 15 minutes, all the way end to end, but that, for the demand that will be in this corridor, that wasn't enough. And so we've overlaid a couple different service patterns, all running with BRT buses, that will result in anywhere from a 5 to 10 minute frequency of service in the kind of core section from Whitney Way to First and Washington. And so I think that will really enhance the service. It'll also provide some additional service between the north and south transfer points. So one of the service patterns would actually run as BRT in the core of the system, but then go up to the north transfer point and down to the south transfer point. And those would provide 15-minute service all day between the north and south transfer point and each other and downtown and campus. So we're working to refine some project details, including kind of station locations and the running way lane configurations and station designs and things like that, which we'll be bringing public in a public meeting on October 22nd. And then there'll be more certainly beyond that as we continue to refine those details. The network redesign that I talked about before, intended to streamline and simplify the route network. Two of the major policy level decisions that will be going into that study will be what we call ridership versus coverage. And that really is examining how much of our service is intended to generate ridership and how much of our service is really intended to provide service to those who most desperately need it. Those sometimes are the same goal, but not always. There are many areas in the city of Madison, especially around the periphery, where people don't have access to cars, are lower income, and they need service, but there's not enough density there to really fill up a bus. And so that's what we would call coverage service, and that is important. Whereas the ridership goal is obvious, to carry as many people as possible. It's the most kind of fiscally sustainable because we're generating the most fare revenue. It gets the most cars off the street, so it has the most environmental goals, best serves the environmental goals. So those are both valuable things to do, and so we need to, as a city, decide how much of our resources do we want to allocate to one of those or the other. And so as we go into the planning process for this, that'll be kind of the first big question mark. The second is the transfer points. The transfer point system was designed in the 90s. And the transfer points themselves were built in the 1990s. Many of them are kind of nearing the end of their life. And so, and with that, as Madison's continued to grow, there's more and more of the city that is outside the kind of ring of the transfer points. And so that means that more and more people have to make transfers to get downtown. And so, but the nice thing about the transfer points is that it enables people to make a transfer and stay on their side of town to go to the grocery store, go to wherever they need to go, without having to go all the way into downtown and come back out. And so, again, I think there's some really good pros and cons with the transfer point system, and I anticipate a pretty robust discussion around, how those transfer points should continue, if they should continue, and if so, in what sort of capacity. A few other general notes before I just open up to questions. So you may see some school buses running around the UW campus. Basically what is happening because of our 20-passenger limit, the UW has contracted with Rightway to run school buses to trail our buses and pick up people as we hit that 20-person limit. And so you'll see a lot more school buses just kind of running around downtown, and it may be a bit confusing. So I just wanted to alert you to that. That's not a long-term plan. Once we lift our 20-passenger limit, that would go away. And then technology upgrades. So it's probably not a surprise to any of you who use the bus that our technology system at Metro is not exactly state of the art. And so we are planning on a pretty robust technology improvement over the next year or two. It's in our capital budget. It's going through council right now, but that would include a significant upgrade and replacement of all of our real-time bus arrival information, including apps and things. Upgrade of our payment, excuse me, our payment systems, potentially including tap cards and mobile payments, and a lot of back-end improvements for us as an operator to improve our efficiency and potentially performance, including on-time performance. And so it's a project we're really excited about. It's a pretty ambitious project, but I think it will result in a lot of improvements, both for the rider experience and for us operationally. That is all I have, and I'm happy to take any questions that you all might have.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Justin. We'll open it up as we always do for questions. If anyone has questions, either you can raise your hand through the manage participants function in the right-hand form. I can call on you, or you can literally raise your hand. I can see almost everyone today. We've got a few pages. So please, anyone have a question? Jay.
Hi, Justin. Welcome to Madison. It was a great presentation and very optimistic. My question is about BRT, the routing decisions that or choices that we were debating all last summer and fall. Just wondering where things are at with the downtown route choices, and whether there's any further opportunity for comment and public input in terms of finalizing those choices.
So that debate was largely before my time, but I do know that it landed with State Street and the Square for the routing, and that is the plan. That we aren't really considering changing that. That was approved by council, and I guess as far as I know that decision has been set.
We've got a question from Paul Quinn. Paul?
Yeah, before COVID struck, there were a number of route changes proposed. Have those all been put in abeyance until the COVID pandemic is over?
Essentially, yes. We are not proposing any additional, again, beyond what happened on August 23rd. We're not proposing any major reshuffles of different things, of routes. And we're really focusing on this route network redesign to tell us where things should or should not be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That said, I will say that we will be doing tweaks certainly here and there. Schedule tweaks, bus stop changes, things like that, as needed to respond to issues. But the overall structure of the route network, we don't anticipate changing.
Very good.
More questions for Justin? Janine, yes, chair, our esteemed chair, Janine.
Thank you. The application that you completed in August, what's the timeline for hearing, about that funding application?
Yeah, so it's a tough question. So the way the process works is that our application was really a request for rating and evaluation by the FTA. That will result in a report that comes out probably in the February or March timeframe, which will rate our project. We anticipate it getting a medium-high rating, which is kind of 4 out of 5. It's really hard to get anything higher than that unless you're New York or San Francisco or Chicago. And that report historically, prior to the current administration, it included a recommendation of funding. So they would rate the projects and recommend certain ones for funding. And that would essentially become an earmark, where that funding was earmarked for that project. And you had some level of confidence that as you went forward in the planning process and design, that you would have that grant money available to you when you were quote unquote shovel ready as you went into construction. The current administration has changed that, where they are rating projects because they have to per statute, but they have not been providing recommendations for funding. And so what that means is that cities are in the position where they have to go all the way through design of a project before they get any confirmation that the funding will be there to construct it, which is not a great position to be in, especially when some of the design costs are maybe $15 million. Because there's a lot of cities who just aren't willing to put up that sort of cash without the commitment on the back end. Obviously, we don't know who will be president next year and if that will change back to the way it was. I do know that even this administration this past summer did change course a little bit. They announced a series of funding recommendations later than that report came out, actually via tweet, I think in June. Several projects were identified as having the funding recommendations, mostly in red and purple states, including Milwaukee's BRT project was tagged for that funding recommendation. So that may change going forward, depending on who the president is, and or maybe even under this current president, things would change the process.
We've got, I got a quick follow-up question on that. I know at last month's Transportation Policy and Planning Board, which we're thankful that Chris McHale and some of the commissioners are on, there were some conversations about BRT and particularly picking up speed and some modifications to the route that you've really sort of looked at with a fine-tooth comb. Anything you can announce here at this that you're sort of looking at to try to pick up speed and how important that is?
Sure. So there's a handful of changes that we're looking at and will be a subject of that public hearing in October. I don't have the full list in front of me, but from memory, shifting a couple station locations to provide some better spacing and allowing us to not always provide additional local service in the same corridor. So there were a couple of places where we had stations that were pretty far apart, which meant we needed to run other buses in that corridor to serve the local stops. And so by adding another stop in the middle, we can serve that corridor only with BRT rather than with both services, which is quite expensive. We're also looking at center running in some sections. And so basically running in the left-hand lane with a station in the median of the street. That would allow us to save some cost. One station in the middle rather than two on the sides is cheaper. But more importantly, it's better running condition because we have fewer conflicts in the left lane than we do in the right lane, especially with loading trucks and vehicles, Ubers and Lyfts and those sorts of vehicles stopping in the right lane and letting people out and blocking the bus lane, which I know from my experience in Indy happens often, even if it's a red painted bus lane. And then the other big thing that we're looking at is on the west side, Rose Road had been proposed to be extended for a short, not even half a block section to connect to the west transfer point. However, it's determined that that area that it would be extended through is a stormwater management area. And so that short little 150-foot stretch of street would cost almost $7 million. And so we're reevaluating that plan. And so trying to figure out what other options might make sense there, because it's not a great use of, there are a lot of better uses for $7 million in the project to enhance the project.
I'm not a transportation engineer, but that does seem like a lot for a couple hundred feet of roadway. I got a question from I got someone just put in. Sorry. Question from our favorite MG&E representative, Dave Benferrato, village president of Shorewood, who asked the question, what is the status of the electric bus fleet additions to the Metro Transit fleet?
Yeah, so we have currently 3 electric buses on order from Proterra. Those hopefully will be here sometime later this year. Those will essentially be our pilot to really test out electrification on the fleet. But the big next step into electrification will be as part of the BRT project. As I mentioned, we added several different service patterns to the BRT. What that means is we'll actually be ordering 41 60-foot articulated 60-foot buses as part of the BRT project, and 27 of those will be electric. So 27 out of 41 of those buses would be electric. And mostly those would be running to where they charge on the street at the end of the line. There would be a a charger with an overhead system that comes down and connects to the bus and does a high power recharge at the very end of the line. And so I think that will be our next big foray into that. As I mentioned, I have a lot of experience with electric buses in Indianapolis, and right now the technology on those buses isn't there to where you can run those buses all day in local service as you do a normal bus without any sort of charging out on the street. And so what that means is you either need to install those chargers on the street, which are very expensive, over $500,000 for those chargers. Or you need to bring those buses back to the garage and charge, which means you need to send another bus out to take their place, which means you need twice as many buses. And so I think until the buses have enough range to run all day long, I think the most prudent choice is to focus on these on-route chargers. But we can really only, I think, cost effectively do that in locations where we have high frequency service of routes where we've got a lot of buses going through there, and we'll use that charger a lot because they are quite expensive. And so that's why we're focusing on the BRT route for now.
Thank you, Justin, very much. Jay, it looks like you might have a follow-up to that.
Yes. Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
You answered most of my question in terms of why we're not going 100% electric right now. So my follow-up is, given the kind of this evolution of electric bus technology, what's your estimate for when we might be at 100% of a bus fleet? And the other one is, are the current buses designed such that as battery technology improves, the better batteries can just be swapped into existing buses, or will it require a whole new battery and bus infrastructure when the better batteries come out?
So I think the first question, in terms of how long it'll take us to get the technology to where it needs to be for 100% replacement, I certainly wish I knew that. I think that the technology is improving at a pretty dramatic clip. So I wouldn't be surprised if within the next 5 years we have buses that are capable of running the entire day of service on a single charge. But obviously that's my guess. I don't really know that for sure. As far as what was your second question? I'm sorry.
My second question was, are the current buses designed such that as better battery technology comes out, that technology can be upgraded to the new battery technology, or does it require a whole new bus infrastructure to take advantage of the improved batteries?
So I don't know. Some manufacturers may be shooting for that kind of modular replacement ability. I do know that with the buses that we had received in Indianapolis, that was not really an option. With each generation of battery, it wasn't just, these aren't AA batteries that you can just plug and play. They were all kind of custom designed and shaped, and so they weren't modular enough to just swap out. But I think the bigger issue was that, even as batteries get denser and denser and can have more energy in the same amount of physical space, the amount of heat that they generate is still proportional to the amount of energy they have. And so as the batteries get denser and denser, you need better and better cooling systems running through the batteries and things. And so it's really difficult to be able to replace just the batteries without also replacing all of the cooling infrastructure and everything, which is kind of more distributed and integral to the bus. And so I think it's not an easy solution to make them as modular as you propose.
Any other questions for Justin? Great conversation. Thank you. Yeah, Victoria.
I know we're obviously confined right now with the pandemic and needing to address immediate needs, and that BRTs in the future, but I'm curious, Justin, when you took the job, if there were other kind of visions that you had that you were excited about for Madison and Metro specifically, that maybe as we can work towards those in the future, that might be something that you're excited about.
Yeah, so I mean, I think obviously, Madison has some very natural benefits to transit, especially for a city this size, both between the university and the dense downtown, but also just some of the geographic constraints with the lakes. And so that was really excited to me because it really shows up, or did show up, in the ridership numbers before COVID. And that I think Madison was, in the top 20 in the country in terms of ridership per capita for, per person in the city. And so that's really exciting to me because it means that there's really strong support and really strong use of transit throughout the community. Whereas in Indy, maybe only 5% of the people had ever even ridden a bus. I don't think that's the case here in Madison, and that's really exciting to me. And then beyond that, just the commitment, both from the public and the elected leadership and groups like this, to making transit better is really important to me. And it makes my job a whole lot easier when I just have to focus on getting the job done and delivering things for people and not fighting the political battles of do people want this or not. And so that was really appealing. And then finally, people are just generally nice, which is really refreshing to come into it, especially at Metro, to come into an environment where people are supportive of each other and all want each other to succeed. So that was another big portion of me wanting to come here.
Justin, I got a quick
Yeah, Fred.
question. This is Fred. By the way, a great presentation. But one of my questions is accessibility, as well as, are the newer buses going to have the same, I'm assuming it's going to have the same accessibility for the handicap? And then the second question is, I'm a bike rider, but I also like to ride the bus, and can I still put my bike on the bus when I ride it to, say, a shopping mall?
So the new buses, the BRT buses, will certainly have the, be accessible for those in wheelchairs and have the ability to store bikes. I don't know that it'll be exactly in the same way as the current buses do. A lot of those decisions have still yet to be made. Most of the BRT buses now for wheelchair securement are going to what's called an automatic system with a backboard. So right now, a person in a wheelchair comes in and they are facing forward and they're strapped in with lots of different straps. Many systems are going, including ours in Indianapolis, went to a backboard system where you come in and you actually back into a slot in your wheelchair. And that means that you've got the protection behind you so that if there were a crash or sudden stop maneuver, that instead of being thrown out of your seat, you're pushed back into the backboard. And so you don't need nearly as many straps because the only way that you could be thrown out of your chair is if, the bus driver accelerates really, really quickly, which, these buses don't accelerate that quickly. So then the other thing is there's a device that you hit a button and it comes out and basically clamps the wheelchair in place. And so you can do that automatically yourself without the bus driver even coming to assist you. And so I think when we rolled these out in Indianapolis, I think there was some initial anxiety about the rear facing and the lack of, always having help. But once they were in place, people loved them because it gives you a lot more autonomy that you never had, that people didn't have before, which I think, everybody is looking for an ability to live their own life, and be able to, support themselves. And so this giving them that freedom to just back into the seat, hit a button, and then you're done, I think was really freeing for a lot of people. And we got a lot of really great feedback on that. As it also makes the boarding process a lot quicker, which is, I think, good for everyone. As far as bikes, BRT systems are typically have bikes inside the bus rather than on the front of the bus. And so there's frequently a bike rack kind of in the rear end of the bus that you either stand the bike up or put it against the side, which again speeds up that boarding process quite a bit. But it does take up some space inside for people to stand or sit. So typically removes several seats and some standee space. And so I think we'll have to have a discussion around that, for which solution makes the most sense for us here in Madison.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Fred, for the question, and thank you, Justin, very much for the presentation. We really do appreciate it. You are welcome to come to this committee at any time. Know that everyone at DMI are huge, huge supporters of Metro Transit, me in particular, when normally if I'm not at home, I ride the bus almost every day. So we're here to help. It's part of our ethos. Janine and the team on the board have done a great job. Jay and the team in the bike committee have done wonderful, making sure that we believe in active transit and transit, all forms of transit downtown. So we are here to help however we can. I know you and I have met a couple times before, but know that this organization is here, and if you need support, please let us know. So thank you very much for being here. You're welcome to stay. We've got some updates, but some of them are from your crew, so you may already know the updates from Bill and Renee and the team. So you're welcome to stay, but we're gonna jump into the updates. So we're gonna start with the team from the city. Bill or Renee, do you guys have an update?
Hey, Jason. I can just give a little update on parking. It's Bill Putnam, City Parking Division. The news for us is we've just put in an order for smart single space meters to replace all of the on-street multi-space meters that we have. All multi-space meters are pretty much at end of life and are having some operational issues. So we expect to have those installed by the end of the year. In conjunction with that, we are also removing some blocks that currently have smart single space meters where we've had very low use, even prior to COVID, and moving those to blocks that have had multi-space meters. So for instance, the 1600 block of Monroe Street no longer has metered parking between Breeze and Garfield. It'll be just for the time being a 2-hour limit probably. And we'll see as time goes on what blocks go back into metered service kind of as needed. So that's a big change in our system. Let's see, just to update, our revenues are in the mid to upper 20% of normal. So we've been coming back very gradually with COVID. At the low point, we were at 3% of our average revenue in our garages. So things were quite low to begin with. So we're coming back slowly. Other things we've been doing is part of the staff team working on the streeteries. And next week, the Common Council has a item to consider extending the streeteries beyond October 25th. A lot of details need to be worked out. We've reached out to a lot of businesses to get their ideas and suggestions how to do streeteries, outdoor cafes in the winter. A lot of questions with heating, tents, that sort of thing. So that's about it for parking. Don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions for Bill and the parking team? Well, Bill, I got to say a huge thank you from us downtown. The streetery program has been a real ray of sunlight for downtown and really has helped many of the businesses. We've seen it as a wonderful use of public space. We're hoping that maybe some of it will become permanent. We'll see. I guess that's a conversation for some other groups, but really it's been a success for many of the merchants and really allowed them to hold on in this difficult time. And Bill, I know you and Megan Blakehorst and all the teams of the city have just done great work. We are honestly really appreciative of that program. It has been very, very helpful. So thank you, Bill, to the team. I want to make sure to publicly acknowledge your work on that important project for us right now. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's great that we can be a partner and support the local businesses. So thanks much.
If you haven't, go down and check out the streetery all throughout the city, but particularly check out King, Pinckney, Main Street area. It's amazing what can happen with public land. And maybe that helps this conversation as to what can happen in the rest of downtown and not being so dependent on vehicles. Okay, so Renee, I think Renee's up. We've got Zia. I know Heather, you might have an update with Madison Bike. So we'll start with Renee.
All right, so all of you have heard about the Wilson Street Corridor Study over the past couple of years, many times. And I'm happy to report that at the September 1st council meeting, that study was approved. So thank you for all the support here and just the suggestions to help make it better. Now I'm sure you're all excited to see it be implemented, which will be a phased approach, but next year we're just working on getting the final details approved for the Broome Street section from John Nolan Drive to Main Street and the 400 block of West Wilson, so that we can bid that project later this year. And construction would then start in the spring for the first part of this project. Then in 2022, as a part of the Blair Street reconstruction down at Willie and Wilson, there would be a small portion would get constructed with that. And then we're looking at the remainder constructed in 2024 after some of the other construction projects in that section in between would be completed. So we're very excited to have this project. I know you've all been sticking with us for a long time to see this through, but we're very excited to have that move forward. Also, many of you might know that the Bassett Street parking protected bike lane that actually went in as a pilot last year in November. And so probably in October or November, it will be going forward just to get approval of the evaluation. At this point, it's been a pretty positive experience from all of the different corners that I've talked to, obviously not without its hiccups, but going pretty well. So I expect that to be approved as well for becoming just a permanent installation. And then we would upgrade some of the paint markings and things like that that were just put in sort of in a more temporary fashion. Let's see, what else? I don't want to steal the Bike Week thunder, so I'm just going to mention one Bike Week event that we are doing with DMI next week. Wednesday, we're doing a lunchtime, let's call it a lunch and learn, and we're going to do something on cargo bikes and business. We're going to talk about the city's pilot of using cargo bikes in our business, as well as talk to a couple other business owners that are using bikes, cargo bikes to do business, and answer questions about how maybe that could work for your business, or maybe you've been dreaming of starting a new business using a cargo bike. That's good too. This is a great time, right, to be thinking of some entrepreneurship. So I hope that you can join us. It's on the DMI calendar. You can go in and register to join us on Zoom. And then I just want to mention that we are doing a new event. It is called Walktober, and we are going to be doing a month-long promotion of walking and getting people excited about that as we build towards applying for walk-friendly community status, which is also a thing. Our bike-friendly status gets a lot more attention, but we are hoping to become one of the top walking cities, and we'll be applying hopefully this December and getting our first rating and really putting Madison on the map as a walking city, since as we all know, it is a great city for walking. It can be better, and we want to make it better, but we also want to just get some recognition for the fact that we have a lot of people who walk, and this is a place where you can have a lot of fun walking, and we want to keep people walking into the winter months. As we know, sometimes people hibernate, but this is not the year for it. So hopefully you'll be seeing more about Walktober as we get closer. And I guess the only other thing I'll mention is, some of you have heard we are going to be working on a complete and green streets plan. And we're just working on getting our contract with Tool Design finalized to assist us with that process. So hopefully by late winter into the new year, you'll be seeing more about that and opportunities to be involved with that project. And with that, I will end.
Questions for Renee? Well, I'm going to make some comments, as I do. Thank you for the partnership on the cargo bike event. You stole my thunder. I was going to announce that at the end of the meeting, but that's okay. So please join us Wednesday, next Wednesday. That would be, I don't know, someday, the 18th, I don't know,
16th.
16th. I don't know what days that are anymore. At noon. Information's on our website. You can log in just like this simple meeting. Please join us. It's a really important conversation. Thank you as well for the partnerships on Wilson Street. That was not easy to do. We really appreciate that. Also continuing to move forward on the walk-friendly status. We've been talking about that as a committee for quite some time. So we're very, very thankful for that. If you need help in any way, let us know. And really excited for Walktober. We've got some great events down in the work. So Renee, the partnership has been honest and true, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you. Jay, do you have a question? Yeah.
You. Great update, Renee. Thank you very much. That Walktober stuff sounds really good. And thank God Wilson Street is finally done. My question is about complete and green streets. Those are pretty broad terms, and they mean different things in different communities. So I was wondering, is there a definition, a working definition that you guys are using to kind of understand what is a green street versus anything else? And that's question number one. Question number two is, what opportunities do you anticipate for DMI, like this committee and the other bike nerds that are on it, as well as active transportation people in general, and DMI as an official body to participate or weigh in on the proposal?
Sure. So the Complete and Green Streets does have a big component of engagement built into our contract, and we'll be working with Tool Design on that, as well as EQT by Design, who you might be familiar with they do a lot of work around equity and engagement. So there will be opportunities coming. We don't actually have them under contract yet, so we're still kind of working out the timeline given COVID and how we'll change things up because of that. But there will be a lot of opportunities for the community to get engaged. This is sort of what we're seeing as phase one. We have requested money for phase two of this project, which would do a lot more focusing on the green infrastructure part. So distributed green infrastructure, from trees to bioswales to rain gardens to all these kinds of things that I've learned a lot about since we started this project. Distributed green infrastructure, when they started saying DGI, I had to figure out, what are you talking about? And I learned that rain gardens are a lot of work. So I think, that will be coming as well. And I think, one thing that we'll want to do is just do a presentation on the whole Complete and Green Streets project as we get rolling, and what does that mean? Because I think Complete Streets has been around for a long time, and it used to be like, well, we'll accommodate everybody everywhere. But then you get into these Wilson Street kind of projects where you have a really constrained environment, and you start to say, well, we need to start looking at complete networks and what streets are a priority for who. And so we're going to be looking at figuring out those complete networks and the priorities for different streets, for different modes. We have bus rapid transit coming, and obviously that's going to impact, having bus lanes impacts the environment and how much space you have for other users. So we have a lot of really big conversations in front of us with this project. So definitely something that I want to come back and have a presentation just on the concept and how you can get more engaged in these discussions.
Thank you.
We would certainly welcome that. One other quick note, I think you brought it up last month, but Vision Zero was passed by the council September 1, and I can't remember which meeting it was as well.
Yes, that apparently has happened since then. So they approved our Vision Zero resolution, and we are going to be working on a Vision Zero plan. And so you'll be hearing more about that as we get into that process as well. And we did request funding for more Vision Zero funding for the future in the budget as well.
Thank you. And I know that's been a downtown issue, particularly in districts 2 and 6 on the East Washington Avenue. So we're thankful for that. I know Alders, Heck, and Rummel are thankful for that happening as we speak. So next up, we have Zia Brukaya, and then we'll have Heather. Zia, you're up.
Good morning. Okay, so we have a lot of stuff going on at the MPO actually. So first off, I've mentioned the rebranding that we've been going through over the past year or so. We're in the middle of a soft launch of that rebrand. There will be more of a public announcement coming later this month in early October, but you will see if you go on the MPO website, the website is now greatermadisonmpo.org. And so that is our new name, Greater Madison MPO. So you'll start to see that. And we're excited to be able to share that finally. We are in the middle of the Cycle September Bike Challenge. So that's, Heather will talk about Bike Week. That's obviously in conjunction with Bike Week. Cycle September is all month long. It's for everybody in the region. We've been working with partners in Sun Prairie and Fitchburg and all throughout Madison to support and promote this. So if you're not registered, I encourage you to register. Google Love to Ride Madison and you'll find it. There are a lot of, I think the number of organizations and individuals who are signed up considering the situation that we're in right now is really exciting, because in the past I think it's been really linked to commuting, you know, riding your bike to and from work, and now it's bike anywhere, anytime, 10 minutes, get on your bike and try it. And so people are really using it as a platform to get involved and stay active, which is great. We have the telework survey that we did that many of you guys, I think, participated in. That concluded at the end of June. We've been working through the results. We presented results to the MPO board earlier this month. And so we're working on a short summary to accompany those results that should be out hopefully by the end of this month. I think we'll be talking about that at next month's DMI committee.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
yep.
I'll share more information with you guys then about the results of that survey. It was really good participation, really interesting to see, you know, how people are feeling about remote work and where they expect it to go in the future, even after COVID recedes. And then if you go on our website, there are a couple of documents that are out for public review right now. The big one is our Transportation Improvement Program, which is basically a map and a listing of all of the transportation improvements and studies, the major ones that are anticipated in our region over the next 5 years. And that includes projects that are going to be funded or will be requesting federal funding. So you can take a look at that. The MPO board is meeting on October 7th and maybe approving it at that meeting. And then we also have our Title VI non-discrimination program and language assistance plan. That's a draft that's also out for public review. So you can check both of those out on our website. And, oh, and I will also mention, as part of Cycle September, a few things to encourage you guys to participate in and then also share information about. There's a citywide food drive that is going to benefit the Community Action Coalition. You can drop off food at almost like any local bike shop, but we've posted about it on Facebook, and really hope to get a lot of food and supplies through that. There's also a trail cleanup that Renee and her team have been working on organizing. That's also citywide. Get out, clean up a trail, leave your bag of trash, and Madison Parks will pick it up. And then we have bicycle benefits blitz. So we're encouraging people to use your bike benefits at local businesses and support them. And you can win prizes by posting, you know, where you've gone and talking about the business and hashtagging bike benefits blitz. So thank you, and that's all.
Wow, you got a lot in there. That was, you guys are up to a lot. That's awesome. Any questions for Zia quickly? All right, now, last but certainly not least, we got to end with Heather and the exciting Madison Bike Week and the team at Madison. How are you, Heather?
Hey, thank you. So today is Bike Week Eve. And so it officially kicks off tomorrow and goes through the 20th. And we have a whole big calendar on our website. If you just go to madisonbikes.org, there's a little link at the top to take you to Madison Bike Week. And it's all spelled out there, including a lot of the things that Zia mentioned for Cycle September. Yeah, some of the exciting things going on are a brewery to brewery race from or to Delta Beer Labs and what's the other one? Hop House in Fitchburg. And Robbie, Zia, and I will be hosting a women and trans inclusive bike chat, just talking amongst ourselves about anything, hopefully addressing some of the issues that keep women from biking more. So sharing our experience and helping problem solve, maybe. We'll see how it goes, but we're leaving that sort of open to whatever the questions are. And then, of course, the cargo bikes and business chat, which will be fantastic, and a UW bike scavenger hunt. I'm curious. I'm going to follow up on that and see if anything has changed since they're on lockdown. And there's also a great B-cycle deal. If anybody doesn't have a membership and wants to get some riding in before, fall really hits in, although came in like a lead brick this week. It's still, put on some gloves, a jacket, you can still get out there, but the B-cycle deal is for a free 1 month membership, which is very generous. And the promo code is Bike Week 2020, but again, on our website. So, if you don't have a bike, you can still do Bike Week. And with that e-assist, it's really nice.
Any questions for Heather on Bike Week? If not, Heather, if you want to send me the information, actually anyone, Zia, Renee, anything you have for the group that wants to go out to the larger group, send me the websites or the links and I'll send it out to everyone so we have, because I know we were a little rushed at the end here. Any other questions? Any other updates? Jay.
Yeah, question for Heather. Sounds awesome. The session on women biking, is that just for women to participate, or is it for policymakers to also listen in on to hear what the issues are that women have?
It is just for women and trans inclusive, so you guys have to sit this one out.
Are you going to report out in terms of the learning that you guys compile, so that if there's things that are actionable that the larger community needs to know about in terms of barriers?
Yeah, that's a great question. We hadn't really thought about it, but I think that would be good. And I think taking notes rather than, recording or something like that might make for a more welcoming environment. So I will definitely note down anything policy-wise or, other things that we can do as people who want to make biking more inclusive. And then if there's anything of note, we'll definitely make sure to share that.
So could I ask you and Jason to kind of review that after the fact and see if it makes sense to have you give us a report to this committee?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, Heather and I will certainly connect on that. Any other questions or anything else for the good of the group? All right, we've got our marching orders. Go enjoy Madison Bike Week. We'll see you as one of our functions next Wednesday at noon for a discussion on cargo bikes and business. So thank you to Renee on that. We have two big events coming in for DMI, the annual dinner, which is the 21st from 11 to 1, and then the What's Up Downtown Breakfast, the 24th, with Dr. Carlton Jenkins, the new superintendent of MMSD. Hope you can join us for all those things. And then next month, don't miss out again for the bike committee, where we've got Zia giving the update on the remote work survey that was outstanding. We've seen some of the early data. It's been very helpful, and I think you guys will be very enlightened by that. So please join us for that. And I know Greg May from 1,000 Friends also has an update at our next meeting as well. Thank you all for being here. We got a lot of information done in 63 minutes. So thank you for holding on. Hope you all have a good weekend. Good to see everyone, and stay healthy. Bye, y'all.